We have an unusually high amount of people. We very rarely have these amounts of people. I would suggest, because the flu, COVID, RSV, if anybody at all has a cold or whatever, if they could put a mask on. Because we generally do not allow these many people in the room. There's elderly people in the room, and I would hate for somebody to get sick. And usually when we have a crowd like this, we put them in another room if we had noticed that there'd be so many people. So all I'm saying, if someone has a cold, and they thank you for putting the mask on. Thank you. And if you have a cold and you don't have a mask, if you could go outside, because I really would hate to hear about somebody getting sick, because we're all so close together. Having said that, good morning. My name is Christopher Iannella. I will chair the hearing today, and let me read a letter dated October 25th, addressed to the Executive Council. Dear Councillors, pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 27, Section 4, I am pleased to nominate Edith Alexander for appointment to the position of Parole Board member. The nominee's full name is, well, I just said Edith Alexandra. Sincerely, Maura Healy, Governor. Before we hear from the nominee and the witnesses, I do want to introduce the councilors. To my left is Councillor Terrence Kennedy. Seated next to him is Councillor Paul DePalo, and next to me is Councillor Tara Jacobs. To my right, Joseph Ferriera and Marilyn Petito Devaney. Thank you. At this point, I know you have some distinguished folks here, and let's get right to it. Let's hear from the first one, retired Judge Robert Tochka. Good morning, Judge.
How are you? Nice to see you.
You can stand or sit, whatever's easy for you.
I'll sit. That's fine.
Fine.
Well, good morning. Nice to see you. So, once again, I find myself before the Governor's Council, and I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak for a good friend of mine, Edith Alexander. I've been before this council many times, twice for myself, and about 4 or 5 times for speaking for other individuals. And I'll make this short. So in preparation for this, I spoke to my good friend, Mike Pomeroy, about what the criteria is for someone who's on the Parole Board. And he said, common sense and good judgment. And with that, basically I said, I'm all set, Mike, because that's what Edith Alexander has. She has common sense. I've seen her, I've known her for longer than I can really remember. We started out in Roxbury together. I was sitting the judge. She was a probation officer. From the outset, she knew everybody in the courtroom. She knew everybody in the community. She cared. Her compassion was palpable in that courtroom, and I enjoyed her being in my session. So Edith Alexander, we started getting much closer when I started a choice program about 13 years ago to help individuals, mostly young men at risk. And what I wanted to do was have an opportunity to meet their families. And I asked Edie to join the program because of her stature, because of her common sense, because of her good judgment. So we met fathers, mothers, brothers, my parents, cousins, uncles, aunts. And Edie Alexander, and whenever anybody left the program, they had to write a letter for me, say what they liked, what they didn't like, and what they would do differently. And most of the people, it's heartbreaking to hear this, but most of the people said, thank you, I didn't know that anybody cared about me. And that really what Edie showed everybody in that program, how much that she cared about them, how much that she had an interest in their success. So when Mike says to me, it's common sense, Edie showed it every single day. And you can't do that program for 13 years. As I said to someone just recently, sometimes it's like banging your head against the wall every day because you care so much. And you have to be aware that there's going to be failures. There's going to be individuals that you try to help that unfortunately they didn't make it the next day, or they didn't make it an hour later. And Edie and I had that experience more than we like to remember. But in the end, what Edie, her concern was to help out the individuals. And anyone on the Parole Board, I cannot imagine anyone starts out with the experience that Edie has working with individuals. She knows everyone. She knows all the community leaders. She knows all the programs. She knows what works, what doesn't work. Her experience is outstanding. Her judgment is outstanding, and her compassion is beyond what anyone would ever understand unless you deal with her on a daily basis. She is probably the most compassionate person that I've ever dealt with. So unless you have any questions, I cannot think of a better person that could be on the pro board and start out running and caring so much to make the difference. Have the judgment to know that when the last thing I want to tell you about Edie is this: there are people who talk the talk, and there are people who walk the walk. Edie has always walked the walk. If you don't do so, whatever, she will love you to the end, but she'll hold you accountable. Yeah. That's the description that I can give for Edie.
Thank you very much. Councillor Devaney.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you again.
And I just, what a privilege it is for this nominee to have you come as the nominee to have you as a witness. Tell me, what especially impressed you when you saw her at her work?
What impressed me was that we had so many conversations about this, is that how much she cares about the individuals, but how much she holds them up to a standard that's a fair standard, that she expects them to toe the line, that she will be as friendly as possible and as loving as possible, but she expects results.
Well, I was very impressed with your, your choice program, and that she is involved. For people who don't know that, that's for people to be able to be incarcerated and to go on with their lives. And you've been very successful. And how would you say she contributes?
She contributes because she does not give up. She does not give up on an individual. The person might fall down, but she'll say, fall down 7 times, get up. All I want you to do is get up, and I'll be there with you when you get up each and every time. And they know that when they deal with her, because they might have tough times with her at the end. I've seen them big smiles, big hugs, because they know that she cares about them.
And if I can, I do want to mention you mentioned Director Parole. And you can ask for a better for this nominee. And what he has done, he set programs on that parole board for people that when they came out, they could get a job. They had anger management. They had to take a GED. All of the programs, I can't even go through it all. I'm going to tell you, in like 25 years, Judge Parole was the only attorney before he was a judge that got an award from the Animal Rescue League. That meant a lot to me. And he was in court representing against animal abuse. I've never seen that in a resume.
And actually, I know the case that he got it for. We know each other pretty well.
Right. I just wanted to tell him when he was a lawyer and he was going out with his friends from the DA's office, they stopped at this building and they said, we're going to stop here. They were going to go out to eat. They went in and it was the animal rescue recognizing Michael Parole. So I did want to put that little plug in other great folks. But anyway, yeah, that program is remarkable that you've done. How long has that been?
So that's been over 13 years. And can I say, you have 2 of the other judges here who have been involved in the program, and I think they would agree with me. That program has survived solely on the back of Edith Alexander.
Wow, isn't that wonderful? That's wonderful. That, you wonder how long the need was to have a program like that, really. Well, I thank you. It's so nice to see you, Judge, and you stay well.
Good to see you. Thank you, Judge. Next, we'll hear from Kim Yeafair, co-founder of Thrive. Good morning.
Morning. Good morning, council members. My name is Kim Yeafair. I am the Chief Empowerment Officer and co-founder of the Communities in Massachusetts. We're based in the Lowell area and hope to be much bigger someday. But since 2016, I have been we have been, sorry, I'm a little nervous. We've been empowering communities to welcome and support adults ages 25 and up transitioning from incarceration. Our approach is centered in the restorative practice as we pursue both support and accountability with individuals transitioning from incarceration, community members, and organizational partners. It's an honor to sit before you this morning with the opportunity to speak in full support of my friend and colleague, Edith Alexander. I've admired Edie for the past 6 years as I've observed her fearlessness in court, advocating for what was best for her community, regardless of if it was a popular point of view or not. I've witnessed the deep impact that Edie's tender yet firm approach has had on the lives of persons placed under her probation supervision. And I have been inspired by Edie's commitment to community, made evident by a lot of things, but especially the people in this room. She does countless work volunteering that she doesn't even realize is volunteering. She works at Boston Medical Center and building strong supportive relationships with institutions and individuals alike inside and outside of her job, her job. In 2017, I met Edie as I was launching Thrive's third ever Circle of Support and Accountability, COSA for short. A COSA is an evidence-based restorative justice reentry model where a returning citizen or member is matched with 3 community volunteers and with the support of a Thrive staff person, connects with other professionals and family and friends involved in the individual's reentry. That is the framework by which I met Edie. During that time, she was supervising our core member, and who himself was an enthusiastic supporter of restorative justice. And that passion, I think, rubbed off a little bit on our friend here. So his passion for restorative justice was infectious, and as we got to know each other and worked around the circle of support and accountability, we found that Edie, our core member, his COSA team, the volunteers on his team, we worked together for the entirety of his supervision. It was complicated, as many times supervision is. But whenever Edie had any questions or challenges, she reached out to me, to the members of his support team. And I think that is just demonstrating Edie's deep understanding for what community safety is. It's not just about a violation and sending someone back into a carceral setting. It's about healing of individuals who are responsible for harm and being patient through that process and persistent through that process. And it's about our larger community being connected with that individual. Edie understands the complexities of that and the importance of community safety from like a much bigger point of view. And I got completely off script, but that is the main point that I want to make here today, that as Edie holds her community, as Edie connects with individuals who are returning from incarceration, she knows that they are intertwined no matter what. And that is why Edie's with your approval, a phenomenal addition.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Devaney.
Thank you, Councillor. That means a lot to me. Now, tell me, is there one particular case, something that you involved with this nominee that really impressed you above everything else?
Yes. So many times. I think the first moment that comes to mind, we had a meeting scheduled, and she happened to be needing to be in court. And so I slid into court to watch as I was waiting for our meeting, and just her fearlessness, her boldness in the room, advocating for what she believed and knew to be right. I couldn't help but sit there and be like, I want to be her when I grow up. So I just, I think that is one of many examples of why this is such an important time.
So, everyone that you work with, respected her, got along with her, is that? Yeah, yeah, that's great. Well, thank you, your testimony, because you work with her, what, on a daily basis, or?
So because we're based in Lowell, most of our circles of support and accountability are in the Lowell area. This was an exception for a particular set of reasons that I won't get into, but that is how we came to meet. But I've reached out to Edie when I've had questions about the way probation works or a particular situation that I wasn't sure how to navigate. And Edie has always been really thoughtful in sharing perspective and point of view, and I know is so deeply respected within the community and within her office.
Thank you, I really appreciate your testimony.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll hear from, thank you, we're all set. Next, we'll hear from Thomas Kuntz.
Definitely is winning as the best dressed today.
Good to see you again.
Yes, good morning. It seems like I've been here before. Bigger room last time. Yeah, exactly. So good morning. My name is Thomas Kuntz. I'm the Reentry Program Manager for the Center for Teen Empowerment, helping young men 16 to 30 years old come out of prison or come out of DYS, and pretty much offer them handyman skills and restorative justice circles to help them deal with their trauma and their healings. So I'm just going to read from what I wrote. So good morning. I'm honored to stand here before you today to speak in support of Probation Officer Edith Alexander, who has been nominated by the governor for a position on the parole board. In the next few minutes, I would like to share a couple of personal accounts of how Edith Alexander has demonstrated exceptional care, passion, and support, not just for me, but for many others. And it's making her truly a remarkable candidate for this esteemed role. I first met Edith, who I refer to as Edie from this point on, during one of the most challenging periods of my life. Shortly after I returned home from my incarceration, I was introduced to Edie at the Transformational Prison Project event over in Seaport. She was very warm, respectful, and so down to earth. I was pleasantly surprised to find out that she worked as a probation officer amongst the 9 other jobs that she held at the time. As you know, transitioning from the prison to freedom after 3 decades can be incredibly overwhelming. After coming home, I found myself struggling to navigate various aspects of reintegration, such as obtaining a social security card and identification card. One of the most immediate issues I faced was a very painful infected tooth. Unfortunately, I had no dental insurance, and Mass Health had referred me to a dental school where it seemed that tooth extraction was the only solution that they offered. However, this is where Edie stepped in as the embodiment of care and resourcefulness. She understood that there might be an alternative solution to the dental issue and refused to accept the status quo. She used her connections in her network to find a dental professional who was willing to take on my case pro bono. This act of kindness and advocacy from Edie not only saved me from an unnecessary tooth extraction, but also served as a powerful reminder of the unwavering commitment to the well-being of those she serves. Her thoughtfulness, her willingness to go above and beyond her official duties, and her ability to connect with a network of professionals who could help is a testament to her character. Most recently, I seriously hurt my back while working out and was in excruciating pain. Could not get a hold of my provider, so I reached out to Edie for some advice, and she immediately got me in to see a doctor. She is but my story is just one of many. Edie has touched the lives of countless individuals who have had the privilege of crossing her path. She consistently goes the extra mile to provide resources, guidance, and emotional support to those under her supervision. She is a dedicated probation officer, but she is a loving and caring resource for those that she serves. Edie's compassion and her unique approach to her role set her apart. She understands that rehabilitation goes beyond punishment, and she actively works to provide individuals with the tools they need to successfully reintegrate into society. She is not a typical probation officer. She is a beacon of hope, a mentor, and a friend to many who desperately need one. I have seen firsthand how Edie has made a difference in the lives of individuals like me. She has helped people finding resources and the support that they desperately need. She has consistently shown she's willing to explore every avenue to assist those in her care and around her, even when it requires extra effort. In conclusion, Edie is more than just an excellent probation officer. She is a compassionate advocate for rehabilitation and unwavering support system for those trying to rebuild their lives. Her dedication and her resourcefulness and her genuine care for the people she works with make her a prime candidate for her position on the parole board. I wholeheartedly endorse her nomination, and I'm confident that her presence on the board will bring about positive change and foster a more compassionate and supportive approach to parole decisions. Thank you for considering her nomination, and I look forward to witnessing the impact that she will undoubtedly have in this new role.
Thank you very much. Glad to hear that you're doing great. You're doing great.
Appreciate that.
And I wish you the best too. You're a strong advocate for
Absolutely.
Edie. Councillor Kennedy?
First of all, thank you for making us look good. You being a success makes us look good when we voted for your nomination. You talked about the struggles with transition when you, it's been a year and 8 months, a year and 7 months, something like that.
Very close.
And what kind of obstacles do you think you're still running into in terms of that transition? It's not a long time after 30 years.
I had a great support system. I had a great support system through the Transformational Prison Project who kind of stood by me. So I can't say other than those couple of issues, and ID was huge. Obviously, I needed ID to do everything. That was the biggest problem that I had. Walking into Social Security, and them telling me that I needed an ID to get the Social Security was really backwards because I needed the Social Security card to get the ID. So it was ironic that they told me that if I didn't have that, I couldn't get it.
You were commuted to a second degree,
That's correct.
and you're on parole.
I am.
What kind of support have you been getting from parole?
Support from,
Obstacles from that. Whatever.
trying to put me on the spot in here, right?
I'm looking for ways that we can improve it, so tell us what's going on with that.
Considering I don't,
Get in trouble with your parole.
I say, be careful, be careful.
this question, this guy, no.
I'm sure you want to answer that, put him on the spot.
Just in general, like,
What I will say is we don't deal directly with the, I don't deal directly with the parole board. I deal with obviously my parole officer.
so I understand.
And all my parole officers have been totally supportive. Haven't had any issues, any concerns. So I've been approved for, going out of town. The parole board has really supported me in that. I can say that. Every petition I put in about 3 or 4. They've approved because of the work that I'm doing and because I'm, living productively out here. So I have no issues, no concerns, and they've been very supportive.
I think I'm really pleased and I'm very happy for you that things are going so well.
I appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor DePalo.
Thank you, Councillor. Good morning, Mr. Coons.
morning.
Seems like not that long ago that Councillor Kennedy and I visited you, and it's amazing to see you here. And just as I was telling you outside, I visited MCI Norfolk recently. Your name, Mr. Allen's name, and Mr. Shabaz's name are celebrated as a beacon of hope. And I'm just so proud of all the work you've done. I give a lot of kudos to the prior governor for advancing you. And I'm very proud of this council for taking it serious. And I'm so grateful that you've set the example that's, we're seeing the current governor run with clemency. So just thank you for being here.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Go. Councillor Devaney.
Before I say anything, I'm trying not to cry, know that. First of all, I have given you a name that I think you should be on the parole board. I think you should be considered for an opening for the parole board. Who else knows 33 years innocent? And that you can see both sides of it, and you've done so many programs and so forth. First of all, your role here is to talk about the nominee. And so before I ask you about her, and you said it all, I just want to say that we spent 3 hours together at the prison. And when I came out, I cried. I sat in the car and I cried because the travesty of justice in the state of Massachusetts, the racial disparity in the courts. And I'm just one person, but it's got to change. We've got to change it. And when I think of, I'm not going to retry the whole thing, when I think of it, an innocent young Marine change your whole life, and look what you've done. Look what you've done. I'm so proud of you, and I'm so honored that I met with you to really know you. And don't dismiss that. Think about that, the parole board. I'm serious when I say that.
So if I may, just real quick, I'd be remiss if I came in here and claimed that I was innocent of the crime that was committed, so respect for
Well, okay.
respect for the family.
I can say
I
it.
just want to offer my condolences to the family and take responsibility for shooting and killing Mark Santos, so I don't want to say it was.
I do too. And I do too. I do too. But I know, and God knows what really happened, and look what you've done with your life. It's like his family have forgiven, but you've forgiven these people and you were treated. Life sentence without parole. That is, I mean, I can't even imagine, you know, but I want to say that that was the most meaningful 3 hours I spent with you.
Thank you.
And I thank you for that. And I can't believe you're here and you look great and I'm so happy for you and you got your whole life. And I have to tell people at your hearing, to hear your son talk about you, how proud he was, that you were a role model, that you got your degree, that you was a BU, if I remember, BU, and that he did too. So, I mean, that's an amazing thing. And for all the programs, and for the inmates who talked about all the programs that you presented to them, that they're out and they're doing well. So really, you are a role model. And now that I haven't done my job and ask me what you think about this nominee, because that's what you're supposed to be doing. Tell me, how did it start? Did you see in her, is there one thing that stands out, something that she did that really helped you on the road to, being where you are now?
Yeah, Edie's so down to earth and so personable, literally picking up the phone and calling her and just talking to her. She works across in the courthouse across from the Center for Teen Empowerment. So, I just actually ran over for her birthday to say happy birthday to her because she's that type of person and she came right out. It wasn't, hey, tell them I'm busy, I'll get back. So she's just so personable, and to deal with the returning citizens as I have seen her, in the time that I have known her is simply remarkable. I don't offer my testimony just for everybody, because again, a lot of people want to come testify, but she deserves that. I wouldn't sit here and testify for anybody who I thought was going to be a detriment to the parole board or, not be balanced in their decisions. So I chose my decision wisely. Say what I say.
People make mistakes and we forgive them, so that's what we do. But you coming here, it means so much to me, really, because you've been there, you've done it all, and you know the importance of a parole board member and to bring this experience. I mean, the council voted for someone who never went to a parole board hearing. I voted no. This is what we need. We need someone who has all of that experience. And you know what she has? And I don't vote for anyone if they don't have it, the passion.
Yes,
When
absolutely.
I met with her, that's what she got it stamped on her forehead. But I'll tell you, I've never met a more deserving person to be on the parole board. And she couldn't have chosen, the witnesses are great, but she couldn't have chosen a better one. You've been there and you know the importance of this job and that she's been doing it for how many years? 20 something, how many years? Okay, we're not coming. But I thank you and I wish you continued success. But think about the.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That will exhaust the folks speaking in support of the nomination of Edith Alexandra. Is there anyone in opposition? That will close that portion of the hearing. And at this point, the floor is yours. We'll hear from you, Ms. Alexandra.
Thank you, Councillor. Good morning, esteemed members of the Governor's Council. Thank you for inviting me here today. I am grateful that I've had the opportunity to speak with each and every one of you in the past week and take the time that you've taken out to meet with me. Before I begin, I want to thank Governor and Lieutenant Governor for this nomination. I want to thank Governor, Chief Counsel, Legal Counsel Paige Scott Reed, and Deputy Legal Counsel Dara Kesselheim for the time, the countless time they have devoted to this process. And I would like to thank Valerie McCarthy for helping shepherd me through this process. And to my friends, family, some who are here, some who are not, I know that you're all here in support, and I love everyone, and this is just an important occasion, and I'm blessed to have you. I'm here today to tell you a little bit about myself and explain why I am honored and excited to be considered as a parole board member. I was born and raised in the city of Boston in Dorchester. I had 5 brothers and sisters. My mother was a Boston public school teacher, and my father had a 3rd grade education and had to drop out of school and become a sharecropper in the South to assist with supporting his family. My parents always emphasized the importance of education to all of us. I was fortunate, despite the fact that money was tight in the family, I was raised in a loving and stable home. My mom died suddenly when I was in my early teens, and my father soon after. This was something that really shook me. Suddenly, I was a teenager, an emerging adult with no parents, and I was forced to be separated from my siblings who were all over the country at that point and were important to me. I am extremely fortunate to have an older brother who took me in New York, provided stability for me in that moment, and ensured that I went to college and became successful. When I reached a moment in my professional life that I chose to do, I felt that it was important that I work with young adults and afford some stability to young people facing challenging times in their lives. I believe I could change the trajectory of their lives. That is the work I choose and the work I have been doing for the past 25 years. I spent most of my career as a probation officer at the Boston Municipal Court Roxbury Division for the past several years as a senior probation officer running the Choice Program and supervising probationers. Through the Choice Program, I work with court-involved youth aged 18 to 24 who sometimes come to us hungry, angry, lonely, tired, and most times without parents. Many of them have suffered significant trauma, mental health issues, substance use issues. Working with these individuals to get new trajectory on their lives helps keep me grounded, helping me to see, helping them see life in a different way. As a probation officer, I have worked not only with the Choice Program and regular caseload. Some have been in state prison, some have not. Some also have probation attached to their cases. The parole board would help me have a broader impact on the work that I have been doing all of these years. In my current job, it is often not appropriate for sentences to be set by a probation officer. They're set by a judge. Some of those conditions of release are really not appropriate to the person who will be entering in on probation. We, of course, don't find that out until they get to probation. One thing I have seen is that I'm excited to be in this position where I can actually, if appointed, be able to tailor conditions of release specifically for the individual so that they can have a more positive outcome and re-enter into society. I'm excited to be a part of this process. I'm eager to answer any of your questions that you may have. Thank you so much
Thank you very much. At this point, we'll hear from Councillor Eileen Duff.
Thank you. Love time. Thank you so much. I'd heard a lot about you before you were even nominated, to be honest. You're well known in the community, in the pro board world, let's say. I don't have a lot of questions. I don't really like to waste time in these things and just listen to myself talk, because I'm Irish and Italian and I'll talk. But you hit a lot of the things that we're looking for. And I think something you just said in your opening statement about the difference from where you've sat in the work that you have been currently doing and from where a judge sits, there's a gap. And, there's nothing that you can really do except do your best. By forming and creating and instituting that program, you really help in so many ways. And I know you know that, but I hope folks know. I think that you're going to bring a great perspective that we don't currently have on the board. What do you think is the most important attribute that you're going to bring to this board as part of that group? Because they've been working, honestly, they've been working 100% down for a really long time. And, I have to say that under the leadership of Chairman Early, their work has been Herculean. I mean, that they've caught up with things that were so, I said it many times during the last administration, I can't believe there wasn't a class action suit against the state for negligence in not getting decisions out. And the fact that this group has worked so hard to get them out. So anyway, I'll let you answer your question.
Councillor, I believe some of the things that I mentioned in my opening statement are some things that I'm pretty consistent about. My compassion is very consistent. My thoughtfulness is very consistent. Knowing all of the work, I understand how tirelessly they have worked, and I hope to be able to contribute my portion of what needs to happen so people don't have to be so strained. And I agree that I need to probably be at my very best to be able to officiate that.
Well, I'm sure that you will. I think, I've said many, many times, because I've spent a lot of time, not just, but frankly with the staff, because that's where we really see the guts of the organization, of how it really works. And those are where my deepest relationships are. And that's why sometimes my votes and my perspectives have been changed from what I would have originally started at by talking to the people who are really there doing the work. Because it's not always what we sitting here in our grandness think. And the most important thing that I've learned is the respect for the staff and for everybody from the ground up, literally from the groundskeepers to the janitors to everybody. They're all dedicated to the Commonwealth and to this work. Some of them have not had the opportunities some of us have had for higher education, but they've been doing these jobs for a long time and they're good at it and they're dedicated to it. And the other thing is this teamwork. Being able to work as a part of a really good cohesive team. And when some of the shift happened and some of the personnel, when some of the people that had to support, frankly, I'm so smart, but when those people went away, the board really shifted and work really started to get done. And morale changed dramatically. And that's, the part that I hope you're going to be good at. You have a reputation for being good at it, but being part of a team player. Now, I know the work you do now is dangerous, but, I'm also an advocate that the parole board members should be part of Group 4. I think this is a very, very dangerous job. I'm sure you've encountered some danger in your job now. I also think, I don't understand, there was a raise put in the budget with EOPS for them, in EOPS has sat on the money. The Parole Board's never gotten this raise. I don't know why the money had been allocated. It is, in my opinion, part of the problem that we've had, getting great people, you know, to take a chance and throw their name out there. So how do you manage right now in your life for your safety?
So certainly I have been on the other side, on the ground. Certainly I have been assaulted. Certainly people have come to my house with my children playing in the yard. I've certainly been on that spectrum of what is not safe about the work I do. Living in the community, working in the same community, it makes it somewhat of a rough and arduous type of balance to make. You know, I just want to go to the corner Target. That's all. I just want to go there. But I can't go there, and I have to go 7 miles away from where I reside because of just all the complexities that go into it. That's not always the case, but it is sometimes the case. And because that is a reality, I mean, and you need to really wrap your head around, that is a real thing. So for me, I just go day to day. I do what I need to do. I don't try to run around cautiously, because then that kind of stifles another part of who I am. So I believe that everything happens for a reason. You're in a place and space and time for whatever reason. And so, Group 4 is good.
Well, I think it's needed. I mean, the stories are just wild of what happens to members in the Parole Board all the time, and particularly in women. I mean, it's crazy. It's dangerous work, but it's good work. And it's meaningful work because you're changing the trajectory of somebody's life, right? And one of the most important things that we're getting back to is not just giving people decisions, yay or nay, giving them direction, right? So they know what to do to get there. And then the next step that we work on, which isn't just parole, but it's in a whole justice system of jails and prisons, is actually making sure the programs we want them to take are actually available. Because this is something I hear from prisoners all the time. I mean, I've heard this from there you go. I've heard this from people inside all the time. I'll take the program, I'll do the program. There is no program. I can't get into it. So how do we think differently and more collectively to make that happen? I don't know. Well, I actually have some ideas, but so tell me about the choice program. What went off in your head that made you come up with this?
I think Judge Tochka had quite a bit to do with it. And I believe that, I believe in emerging adults, and I believe that, I look back on what I went through myself as an emerging adult, and the trauma that caused as I progressed through life. And so I could relate to what these young folks were going through. And I could offer some experience, strength, and hope to them. And if I could, some didn't want it. Well, you didn't want it in the beginning. You're gonna get it by the end. And so, finding creative ways to have them understand that it is very important that you receive your high set, or it is very important that you now have you have a high school degree, you should move on to college now. But moving on to college, there's support that goes with that, and so you can't just say, okay, I'm gonna send you over there, and then, you're on your own. It's not that easy, and that's a commitment. So I believe in the program. I will always believe in the program, and I will probably always do whatever I can to assist the program.
Thank you for it, because this, you know, I think some of it comes down to like, what are the 5 basic needs of humans, right? And shelter, food. We all know them, but those are so basic. And one of the things you spoke to me about when we were meeting was about making kids eat, right? Eat a hamburger. It's, you know, this or that. Because they're hungry. And even though some people don't believe, you know, even kids that are kids, you know, I'm old now, but you know, 20, 30, those are still kids to me, but 25-year-olds, 23-year-olds, they're kids. And you know, bless your brother for stepping up in raising you. And you must have had fabulous parents.
Yes.
Even though, you know, you lost them early,
Yes.
because he would be, I don't know him, but for him to have even had that within him to know, again, changing the trajectory of one person's life, how many lives, and he should know this, I don't know if he's here or not, but how many lives has he changed? Because he changed your life. And this is why every single person really matters. And so, you know, for me, the other main thing is, Mr. Coons mentioned ID, all right? You know, it's the chicken before the egg, right? I think that, we can talk about that forever, but shelter. You can't get a job if you don't have an address. If you don't have a place to lay your head. And right now, we set up our folks coming out of prison and jail to fail. Because they can't go into public housing. They can't couch surf with someone in public housing. I mean, it is just crazy. You know we have a housing crisis in this state. In the whole country, we have a housing crisis. We're so many millions of units behind. That said, we need to think very creatively, and I think this administration is taking this on. I don't know so much with the prison system, but just in general, because we are at the tipping point beyond it right now. But we have to help people find places to live, because you can't get a job if you don't have an address. I mean, you can find food. Food is hard, but there are places you can eat. But it is very hard to find a safe place to lay your head. So my last question is experience that you have and anything you want to expound on or share about working with folks in the LGBTQ community. Because this is a group of people, gay, lesbian, transgender, whatever, coming, who are in prison, how we treat them in prison, and what happens, how do we help transition them out? I've said many times, I understand that the transgender issue is a very difficult issue for a lot of people to get their head around and get their arms around, but it's a real thing. You know, it's real. And so, you know, part of your job is going to be not just that, you're adding a whole nother layer. So do you have any experience with that community? And this isn't a trick. If you don't, that's okay. I always want honest answers. I don't want you to try to fool me, because people have said things up there before that were outright lies, and I've been able to prove it later. So, especially parole board people. That's the truth. Anyway, so.
So Councillor, to answer your question, I do have experience. Is it vast experience? It is not.
Right.
My experience on the level where I'm coming from, for those that I have worked with, it has been extremely challenging.
Sure.
Extremely. I think that there's still lots more education. There's just a plethora of education that, quite frankly, not only can I do, but I think the public in general can go through to understand all of the complexities that occur, and how to best be able to provide a quality of care which is what it really comes down to, that meets everyone's needs across the board. So essentially, that's all that I can really say on that.
That's great. My time?
Time's up.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. Best of luck.
Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. if we knew you were gonna bring this many people with you, we should have got TV gardeners. Usually when we have a crowd like this, for parole hearings, it's because they're not going well. Usually, negative, attendees as opposed to the incredible support that you have. And it's not just support that you have today, it's some people that I have a lot of respect for, Judge Joseph, Judge Delvecchio, Judge Crosby, I think Weingarten's here, I saw him somewhere. And, you know, it says a lot, about you as a person, that so many people be there to support you. And it's not just in this room, because my phone won't stop ringing either. It's saying how great you are. I already knew that, though. I was already aware of that. And some of the work that you've done in the Roxbury Court. You have a great reputation there within that community as well. Your counselor is a huge supporter. He's very passionate about parole. He's given some pretty strong speeches at some of the hearings about the kind of people that he wants on the parole board. And he's made very clear to me that you fit right into that box. He's been a big supporter. You certainly are a success story from where you came from and the tragedies that hit you in life early on. Things could have gone completely different, and that says a lot about your character. Now, that said, do we parole enough people? Do we let enough people out?
I think we have some work to do.
Me too. I think there's a tendency to, especially when people are looking at shorter sentences. In the past, parole board members have looked at it, and I've had conversations with them where they say, well, he's only got 2 months to go, he's only got 6 more months to go. So I'm not gonna take a chance on this one, or he hasn't got time to get assimilated, and I completely disagree with that. I think, you know, 1 day in prison, more than you should do, is too many. You know? You have an incredible resume. I'm not gonna belabor it. We've already sat down and had very, very long and detailed discussion about your philosophy towards parole. And I know that you've done some things to get up to speed on parole. I know you went to 1 or 2 hearings and a conference they had or something.
Yes, I have, yes,
You're gonna be working with some nice people.
yes.
They're kind of a family over there these days. It hasn't always been that way either, and I think you're gonna fit right in. I'm gonna vote for you next week. I don't have any agents at the moment.
Thank you very much. Councillor Paul DePalo.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm only gonna have a couple questions, but I just want to say first, congratulations on being nominated. And I haven't been here too long, but as Councillor Kennedy noted, a lot of the parole board hearings have been, I guess I'll say, contentious. And when I look around the room here, and the most recent nominee as well, it's not necessarily well-connected people. This is community. These are people who are aware of the impact your work's gonna have because it impacts the community.
Yes.
And are sensitive to that. And I thank the governor for that, because there's been a tone shift. As has been noted, you know, the parole department in general has had tough morale over the last few years, and it's really moving in the good direction. And I think you're gonna be a great addition to that. I'm a parole nerd. I have all these articles and reports with notes on them. And if you suffered yourself through any prior hearings, you might have seen me go through them, but I don't need to do it. In your opening statement, you're hitting all the issues that some of us on the council have been concerned about for years. For me especially, it's the childhood trauma and the way that impacts folks. And to have someone who's articulate in that and not theoretical in it means a whole lot to me. When we're thinking of, you talked in your opening statement about individually tailored conditions for folks, right? When you're individually tailoring them, what's your objective? What's the objective of the conditions in your minds?
I think the objective in my mind is to help the individual that's reentering be able to become successful in whatever their trajectory is. So I'll just arbitrarily use an example. If mental health is an issue, then that's an issue that needs to be worked out. It's not an issue that we kind of like overlook and just say, okay, well, you know, you can find a therapist. Well, I can only talk about where I work, and I know that the wait list is very long
Yeah, good luck.
for therapists, very, very, very long. And so then what does the person do? So to be creative in trying to tailor so that the person is getting all of their needs met at that time, that's and able to push them along until the service actually becomes available is paramount. You have to be able to meet people where they're at, but you also need to be able to take them all the way down the line. And that is one of the aspects of being able to provide adequate services to someone who is reentering.
Thank you. And I think every parole board member should be able to see the trajectory someone's on and be able to step in and predict where things will be challenging. The governor has issued new clemency guidelines, which I'm very excited about. One of the things the governor talks about is using clemency as a means of addressing unfairness in the criminal justice system. That's a subjective term. Do you think that there's unfairness historically that clemency can be used to address?
That's kind of like a twofold kind of, I know that's not a trick question. But I know that at some,
I can frame it different.
okay.
I can frame it different. What are some things that you can imagine someone experienced in the process of landing where they are that perhaps have an element of unfairness to them that would deserve remedy through clemency?
So I believe that if the individual has done the work that they've needed to do in a carceral situation, that clemency is certainly part of doing the whole justice issue and helping them to get to that place so that they can come out and become a successful person.
And if they've done the work, something like joint venture theory or something like where the law has changed in the intervening years, is that something you would feel should be considered in a?
I absolutely do.
And this is something we talked about on the phone, but we've heard about the lack of enough programming in our institutions. There is some, but there's long wait lists, and depending on your classification, you don't have access. And if you don't have access, you can't change your classification because you're not. So one thing we discussed is there are inmate-led programs of restorative justice circles and other things like that. Is that something as a parole board member you'd take into account beyond the formalized institutional programming as a means of demonstrating work and progress and healing and so forth?
Absolutely, I would. I think I might have mentioned this to you over the phone. I really believe hurt people and healed people heal people.
Yeah.
And so in order to be able to get to that place, there needs to be some work. And I think the restorative factor does that.
And I'm thrilled about all that we heard about your connections and your understanding of the resources that exist in the community. And I know you're going to apply that as best you can to your work. I look forward to supporting you. I'm very glad that you've been nominated. Thanks for your time. Thank you, Councillor.
Councillor Tara Jacobs.
Good morning. It's great to see you. And I want to say I very much appreciated our time together and the rich conversation that we had. We covered a lot of ground. I want to start with one of the stories you shared with me that really landed, and I think so illustrated how you approach your work and the values that you bring. And it's the story you shared, which Councillor Duff alluded to as well, but recognizing that your probationers were showing up hungry and had a whole day of waiting for their time in court, and it would impact their ability to really fully engage. And so you saw the problem and then you solved it with a community partnership of bringing in not just breakfast and lunch, but to provide the breakfast on linen tablecloths. And I think that speaks to so many things. I think it speaks to seeing a need and finding a solution, which is a wonderful asset to bring forward to Parole Board. But to do it in a way that shows so much humanity and respect and value for the people whose needs you are solving. There's multiple ways to solve that need that reflect a different set of values. And the way you did it demonstrated a set of values that I think is just worth pausing and appreciating. And I hope, I don't even hope, I fully expect that you're gonna bring that same set of values and abilities to the work of the Parole Board in seeing problems and finding solutions and treating people with respect and treating people with humanity. And I think that's amazing and needed and will be such a valued addition to the work the Parole Board does. So I just want to validate that. Having said that, we also talked a lot about the racial disparities that are in the incarcerated population, but that show up in the work of the Parole Board itself. That the racial disparities become even more stark in the outcomes of who is getting positive parole from the Parole Board and who isn't. And Black and brown people have far fewer successful outcomes. And it gets even worse when you look at men versus women. Women, the racial disparities extend even further. And so I kind of want to offer you, this is the problem that needs a solution, and ask for your thoughts about how, as a member of Parole Board, you might be able to have an impact.
Well, I do agree that, and I don't really think that that's like a big secret to just not anyone in this room. It's a factor, right? And we have to be able, in order to change something, to be able to address it head on. So being able to, one, talk about it, two, being able to lend, all of us are coming from different lenses and different perspectives. And I believe that being on the board, that bringing all of those experience, strengths, and hopes of all involved, that's an area that can be addressed. I mean, because it's not even an area that needs to be addressed tomorrow or maybe next year. Because I think that historically, that's what it's always been. And I have to speak my truth on that because that's just how it's been. So going forward, I'm hoping to be able to make some changes and to participate in making some changes, however that may be, however big, however small that may be, but to be able to make the changes for the women, the Black and brown people of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
I look forward to seeing you do that kind of work because it's much needed. It's needed today, it's needed tomorrow, it's needed into the future. The only way to change a trend like that is to actively work to change a trend like that. Be aware of it. And with that awareness, bring that to each individual case of what biases are impacting what's happening in this room at this moment and the outcomes that, our decision making. My fellow counselors alluded to some of these things as well, but we talked about the disconnect between what's happening in the prisons and what the board is expecting. And, expecting programming that doesn't exist. Having expectations that were never communicated to a person prior to showing up in Parole Board. And then having the frustration of you didn't do something that you didn't know you were supposed to do. And even if you knew, it didn't exist, it wasn't there, it wasn't offered. That kind of dovetails with another issue we talked about, which is when Parole Board sort of relitigates the criminal offense rather than look at the time spent incarcerated and what kind of character, what kind of work, what kind of progress, what kind of efforts towards reformative reentry a person has done. And I think both of those are sort of key areas where the work could be done differently. And I just wanted to hear your thoughts around how you as a member might be able to have an impact on, or even if you agree that it needs to have an impact there, change there.
Councillor, I think that it does. I think it does have an impact. And I think that, I think that the work that needs to be done, is I would have to say a slow and gradual. You have to chip away at things. It's like a piece of ice and, you can see it in the ice, but you just can't seem to get it. And so I think that that's a gradual issue. And I ultimately just look forward in trying to be a change agent and participating in any and everything that I can do.
Looking at your resume, looking at all the work that you've done in the community, I have faith in your ability to be that slow and steady ice chipper. Make some good progress. I don't really have many more questions. I just want to say I also have heard great things about you from members of your community and who've reached out, and some of whom I reached out to, and just sort of validated that you bring good judgment, good common sense, and a steady hand, a tough love, hold people accountable while supporting them and seeing their humanity, all the things that we want to see and that I'm excited to have you bring. I also wanted to share that your counselor called to make sure that I knew how much he was excited for your nomination, and made sure I was aware that he was fully supporting. So having said all that, I don't have any further questions, and I'm just congratulations and looking forward to seeing you do the work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Joseph Ferriera.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, like other councils, have heard incredible things about you, including from the chairman over here to my left, Councillor Iannella, said great things. I've talked to other people on the parole board who have interacted with you and know you, and you have their full support as well. I think you've had an incredible resume. I applaud you for believing something larger than yourself in life and making big ideas into something useful to society. And I'm sure there's thousands of people that you've touched that are thankful that you've been their little guardian in life. So I appreciate all that. What do you think about the governor's policy guidelines that were just introduced a few days ago?
Have I seen it?
I'm sure you've seen it. It's been over the news a little bit.
So, I mean, I think this goes back to something that I probably said a little earlier, and that is that I think that clemency is a huge component of this process. And I agree in clemency, and I look forward to anything and everything that comes my way.
I'm on the Board of Trustees at a small community college down in Bristol County, PCC. And we just had a meeting the other day, and we were talking about, the governor's, signed into law recently where people over 25 can get free education. Have you seen that help any of the people you're trying to help? No, it was just rolled out in August. Big uptake at BCC. Experience, anything that's going to be helpful to people that you deal with on a regular basis?
Yes, I think that it's going to be very helpful. I mean, we certainly have sent a few folks that are in the choice program over to RCC. I'm hoping that this will be a big pivotal shift for them in their lives when they never thought that maybe it would be. And so this component, this is a side that they don't have to worry about, right? Because they've had to worry about money and how am I going to pay for this and how am I going to eat and how am I going to do this, that, and the third. That's one big piece that we can now take off the table. And so I'm hopeful that that there will be a lot of people, not just in the choice program, but that there will be a lot of folks in the community that take advantage of that opportunity because it is a great one.
I agree. Like at our small college, we have food boxes that people, they have accommodation to, so that they don't go hungry, so that, you can't educate someone's hungry. Do you see that as something that's rolled out throughout colleges you deal with, that people can get food and items that they need to survive through college?
So yes, so I have heard of that. I know that it exists. And so I think it is a great thing because, I mean, students are hungry. It's just that simple. People are hungry. And if you're making it to a community college place, more than likely, there's a reason why you're getting to a community college place instead of a bigger institution like UMass. So this is a time for them to work it out. This is a time to know that you're being fed. We are going to support you in any way that we can. You just tell us what your need is, and we will then provide you with whatever need we can, because we would like you to be a successful graduate of this institution. Therefore, we're going to provide all that you need.
I can tell you, like, what we're doing down south with wind projects and things like that, we try to obviously align our curriculum with jobs that are going to be coming up in our area. And I'm sure other colleges do that as well, which I think is a win-win for everyone. I think you have an incredible resume. I read one thing I read coming into, and this was interesting. So I just wanted to, this is from Patty Guerin to Paige Scott Reed, the governor's lawyer. I wanted to let you know that all the stakeholders that I work with supporting Edie for responding on the parole board, it's pretty unusual for law enforcement side to get such universal support, but she definitely has it. So somebody that was a cop for 30 years, I've been retired for 9, but I saw how we policed even just 38 years ago when I got out of the academy to how we police now. And I'm glad that the transition was made and we're not locking people up for having a joint or doing petty things. And we're reflecting on that now, undoing the bad effects it had on people's lives. So thank you for applying. You definitely have my vote next week.
Thank you very much. Councillor Petito Devaney.
Nice to see you again. It was such a pleasure meeting you. I always look for life experience, and you're bringing to the parole board your life experience. And I can't even imagine what you must have gone through with that kind of to lose your parents. And they're here with you today. And we're going. I mean, wonderful thing that you've done. You wonder, what about life you had chosen? Where would you be? Different foster homes or different things like that, So that shaped you. That really did, and God bless your brother. But I just want to say that, what you're going to bring to the parole board is amazing. Now, I just want to ask you, are there anything that you want to bring? What program would you like to bring to the parole that you think is needed?
I've given that some thought, certainly not a lot. I mean, I come with a vast experience, in so many things that I'm hoping that with a little bit of this and a little bit of that, that I'll be able to just get the ground running and be able to assist with, even if it's community resources. Certainly I have a lot of knowledge there. And so even with that, I think we have.
Well, we've got about 12 letters, and I know the chair will, will read the names, but besides Judge Tatcher and Del Vecchio and Francesco and Fool, we got, other lawyers like Garen and other people. So this is extraordinary too. And I'd like to ask, to interrupt my time, I'd like to ask the chair if he would allow the nominee to just introduce your family. We don't know family here or who.
You can do what you want, but this is your 15 minutes. You can do anything you want for your 15 minutes. Thank you.
They voted to time me, so anyway, but I just wanted to say that meeting you, I mean, I've been concerned about the parole board because it's gone the wrong way. And now we're going on the right way. I've only voted on the present ones, only against one. A state representative who never went to a parole board hearing. So, I mean, this is what we need. This is what we need. We don't need someone to learn on the job. You know what is necessary for someone to go on with their life, and you've led them on that path. All of these people that wrote letters about you, and I have to mention that Justice Hines was so disappointed she couldn't. And I have to say, she's a dear friend of mine. We go back 23 years when she came before us. So, and she said that she has known you for over 2 decades, and you have the reputation of integrity and commitment to helping people and mend their lives. And she also said you also helped her when she was in court, that you mentored someone to get through the court. That tells me a lot. You believe in second chances.
Absolutely.
And that's what we need. And for me, it's been an experience to go out in prisons and meet these inmates and just see what's happening. So when they come to a parole board, to someone like you, they'll have a chance to be heard, to see that there was disparity, that it wasn't fair, and to give them that chance. So, so you think there should be some, I'm sure you will, I'm sure that you'll put more programs in that you think they needed. I had mentioned a little about, Judge Parole, what he had done, put a lot of programs in, and they all thanked him for their lives, that they were prepared to go out into society, So in your experience, what is the most rewarding case that you had, that you advocated for someone?
I think the most rewarding case that I can fall back on is, it was an article that was actually in the Boston Globe. I was working with a young lady who was pretty combative. Every time she saw me or any judge, it didn't matter who it was, because her trauma had her believe that everyone was against her, and now she's in the system, so now the system is against her. And so watching her have her child, I quite frankly, I even say today that I'm still a little shocked that when she went into labor, that I was the person that she called. However, it was a Saturday, I ran to the hospital, I supported her. I didn't know I would hold her hand while she actually delivered the baby, but she had no family support, and she had no one to be there with her and delivering her first baby. So, I did not find that robbery to spend a Saturday and a Sunday and help her get home and get situated. I did not find that robbery. It was a very difficult situation and a difficult case. But I'm very pleased today that, she is now, as of December, a graduate of UMass Boston.
Voted timely, so there's so many, I know so much about you, meeting with you, and I thank you for all the time. I mean, we spent so many hours together, but the thing was that, I wish everyone could know all the things that you've done, but I don't have the time. But, so going forward on the parole board, what do you think is the biggest challenge?
One of the biggest challenges will be just, and I don't really see it as a challenge. I don't tend to look at anything as a challenge. I think that, everything has a learning curve. And so once you go through that learning curve, then you're able to see exactly what you're working with. And once you know what you're working with, then.
Well, you're going on with wonderful people. I mean, to have a forensic specialist, a social worker that has started the program that I have attended, and I didn't even know she even developed it, and that was the drug. And for people who don't know that, it's a wonderful program. These are people who are addicted. Some of them are older and for years and years, and they go through this program and they're clean. And I'm sitting in the back with tears in my eyes. I don't, it's so moving for them to tell the story, how effective it was. Because we really haven't won the war on drugs. And so I go to drug courts, I go to parole board hearings, because I want to see what's being done. And I want to see how the parole board members, and as I said, you don't have to learn. You're going to be, from the time you sit there, you're going to know what you're doing. And with all the experience that you bring. Do you have any follow-up with any of these people that you helped? Do they get back to you to see how they've gone on with their lives?
Oh, they absolutely do. Sometimes I'm very shocked, actually, that they follow up. I follow many of them in their lives now with their own families, with their own children, where they are. And somebody said to me the other day, who hadn't seen me for maybe 7 or 8 years, and said, "You always told me to get a job. I really didn't like you for making a job." He said, "But now I have 2 jobs." And it's ironic, you work with folks in the community, you never know where they land, you don't hear from them. And a tree branch had gone through my windshield while I was driving. And when that branch went, so now I needed to get my windshield fixed. And as I called the insurance company, we'll send somebody right out. And the young man that they sent out just happened to be a graduate of the choice program.
Well, I've got to tell you that you are now on the Hall of Fame, having a Belter Walker with the Diamond, like a lot of Justice Island and Justice Hines and Justice Bud. So, it was just such a pleasure to get to know you, and thank you for applying. Thank you so much. And, you're going to fit in so well that they're going to learn from you as you will learn from them. And I can't wait to hear more good things that you're going to be doing. And I wish you all good luck. And your witnesses were great. It was great to see Thomas. That's wonderful how you helped him too. And so we're very proud of everything you've done. And I'll be looking forward to seeing you doing more things and rewarding things. I also wanted to say about your writings and everything. I haven't got time. He's going to cut me off, but they're going to get the hook. So I just want to say that I can't be more excited. I don't have a poker face, so I've been smiling since I got your resume. So luck, and I'll be watching and being your rooting player.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Devaney. I don't have many questions. We had a nice conversation, you and I. It's so good to see someone like you being nominated to the parole board. Last week, a couple of weeks ago, the governor nominated another great appointment. So the 2 appointments that the governor's made on the parole board, in my opinion, have been outstanding, and I want to thank the governor's staff, Paige Scott Reed and her staff. 2 great appointments. The one thing that I, over the years, didn't like about the parole board, some of the members, we've got a lot of great members, but some of them, not so great, at least in my opinion. Some of them like to retry the case. To me, that's not the job of the parole board. Agree or disagree?
I agree.
You hear, you look at some of the transcripts and, well, why did you do this? And the person's already been found guilty. The person's already been found, been sentenced. To me, the job of the parole board, and you can tell me if you agree or disagree. Let's look at the person's institutional record. That's important. Any D reports. Does this inmate, is he going to be able to transition into the community? Has the person, if appropriate, taken full responsibility? Because there are times when, unfortunately, people are in jail and they don't belong in jail. I think there's a statistic, 15% of the people across the country are in jail. So you can't insist on these people to admit what happened if they didn't do it. You agree with that? That's good. You also got the endorsement of Parole Watch, I deal with parole watch, you know, when they come to the council. Sometimes they speak for, sometimes they speak against. But my understanding is they have fully supported your nomination. And they do good work. Parole watch does good work. I don't have any other questions. Again, I just want to say, I'm always, excuse me. I'm also a fan of rehabilitation when appropriate, as opposed to incarceration. You know, we all make mistakes. You need second chances. Sometimes you need 3 chances. I think you're going to be a great addition to the parole board. I said that to you on the telephone. You know, I like your resume. Ooh, what a group of people, all these people here today. Wow. And I'm glad a lot of them took my advice. A lot of you have masks on, and I appreciate that. But no, you're going to be a great addition. You have compassion. We don't need law enforcement people on the parole board. We need people like you on the parole board, someone with integrity and someone with. Excuse me. So when your name comes before the council, I will be proud to put your name before the council, and I will enthusiastically support your nomination. Thank you very much, and we have about 30 seconds.
I just agree with the counselor. He said it very well. I couldn't say it better myself. But I do want to thank personally the governor and lieutenant governor, because with you and the people that they put on the parole board in this administration, all are experienced, all are qualified. We're not getting a representative that never went to the parole board. We're getting good people, and I'm very proud of that, and I want to thank them. And thank you for applying. That's the big thing. But no, I agree with the counselor. When I first got elected, they're all prosecutors on the parole board. And I looked at that. I hadn't been in conformance since Governor Dukakis for 30 years. And I worked hard, we changed it. And now we're getting on the right track now with this new administration. I couldn't be happier, because you're a star. You'll be great up here. Thank you.
The hearing, and again, thank you for all the people who came here today. They've been patient, they've been considerate. Thank you outside, you're great. A lot of you don't have seats, but unfortunately, that's the way it is here. You've all been great, and again, thank you so much. That will conclude the hearing. Thank you.
Is Eileen here? Do we know?
Yes.
Track her down if we can.
Here.
I can hear her. But I can hear. Started and recognize Councillor Kennedy for a prayer and for leading the Pledge of Allegiance.
I'd just like to take the silence as we enter the holiday season, that everybody in the Commonwealth has a safe and happy holiday season. It's a lot of times things go south during that time, and I hope everybody is safe.
So,
Amen.
We pledge allegiance to the flag
United States.
to the republic, which stands one nation, under God, indivisible,
Visible.
with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to recognize Councillor Duff for a motion to record advice and consent for the financial warrant.
So move, Governor.
Second. Motion made by Councillor Duff, seconded by Councillor Iannella. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. I'd like to recognize Councillor DePalo for a motion to record advice and consent for the pending list of notaries public and justices of the peace. Moved. Is there a second? Seconded by Councillor Iannella. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. I'd like to recognize Councillor Ferriera for a motion to record advice and consent for the appointment of Audrey C. Murillo to the position of Associate Justice of the Juvenile Court.
With great pleasure that I make that motion, Governor.
Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Councillor Kennedy. Your discussion, Councillor Devaney.
I have to stand, this is, we don't see this all the time. Here's someone that came from very poor background, very difficult, childhood. And there's no one more understanding of people in need as she is. And especially when she was a young child to be in that position. But I really think that she identifies with the people that come to see her, and they will identify with her. And that's what we need, someone in the court to represent them. So I'm very proud to vote yes.
Terrific. Well said. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'd ask for the roll to be called.
Councillor Duff? Yes. Councillor Kennedy?
With pleasure, yes.
Yes.
Councillor Davis?
Yes.
Councillor Ferriera?
Yes.
Councillor Devaney?
Yes.
Councillor Iannella?
Yes.
7 members voting, 7 in the affirmative. The matter carries. All right. I'd like to recognize Councillor Devaney for a motion to
Governor,
record advice and consent for the appointment of Michael J. Pino to the position of Associate Justice of the Superior Court.
I'm very honored to make the nomination, to vote for this nominee.
Let me get a second before you.
Motion?
Is there, motion's been made by Councillor Devaney, seconded by Councillor Iannella.
Thank you.
Under discussion, Councillor
Thank
Devaney.
He has the age, he has the experience to bring, 34 years that he's been a lawyer. And not only has he had real criminal cases that are horrendous, but in my experience in 25 years, we don't see someone that has had so many cases in white collar crime. We need that. And I think he'll be a great addition to the Superior Court. And also compassion. I always look for compassion. And he has represented people who couldn't afford, many people who couldn't afford a lawyer. And I always look for the compassion. So he has everything, experience, qualifications, and the compassion. So I'm proud to make the motion.
That's great. Motion's been made and seconded. Any other further comments or questions?
I do.
Please. Councillor Jacobson.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment that I agree. He's a very intelligent man. He's a very qualified man. He has definitely the demeanor one looks for in a judge, and I validate all of those things. I have a concern about him from the standpoint of his self-awareness around bias and his sort of having a blind spot to racial, gender, and other forms of implicit bias, and didn't really hear from him a strong sense that he was going to work on it in a way that I felt would impact that. And the violence in our justice system is one that concerns me greatly and drove me to want to be a part of this council. And for that reason, I'm voting no today.
Thank you, Councillor Jacobs. Any other comments or questions? Okay, could I ask the secretary to please call the roll?
Yes.
Jacobs? No.
Yes.
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 7 members voting, 6 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative. The matter carries. I'd now like to recognize Councillor Kennedy for a motion to record advice and consent to pardon Robert Miller.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded by Councillor DePalo. Second. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, I'd ask the secretary to please call the roll.
Yes.
Jacobs?
Yes.
Ferriera?
Yes.
Devaney?
Yes.
Iannella?
Yes.
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 7 members voting, 7 in the affirmative. The matter carries. Now I'd like to recognize Councillor DePalo for a motion to record advice and consent to pardon Eric Nada.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Jacobs. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, if you could please call the roll.
Jacobs?
Yes.
Yes.
Devaney?
Yes.
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 7 members voting, 7 in the affirmative. The matter carries. That's our last order of business. And I know Councillor Jacobs, you mentioned that you wanted to raise a issue.
I just wanted to follow up on, I think it was a month and a half ago around, we, as a council, formed a rules committee and agreed that we would bring a draft of rules to the council on the first assembly in November. And so a draft of the rules have been shared to the council today. And so the proposal that I'm making is that we give the council a week to evaluate those rules and give whatever input or suggestions they may have, comments they may have, and bring it to a vote at our next assembly.
Any other comments or questions? We don't need a formal motion. We can just build some consensus on it. Councillor Devaney?
Question through you to the counselor. Will we be able to meet and discuss it before we have the vote, just like we do at the hearing, and then we vote the next week? Can we talk about it and hear?
Want to schedule a discussion hearing around rules in between when we have other hearings and assemblies? I support that idea. Officially, like, put it on the calendar that we'll have.
Set a date.
Yeah,
An executive session.
an executive session. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, before we just motion to adjourn. By Councillor DePalo, seconded by Councillor Iannella. All those in favor, all those opposed? We stand.
Good start. All right.
Sir.
I am gonna start by reading into the record a letter dated October 25th, 2023, addressed to the Executive Council. Dear Councilors, I am pleased to nominate Fabiola P. White to the position of Associate Justice of the Juvenile Court. I submit this nomination for the advice and consent of the Executive Council pursuant to Part 2, Chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I am enclosing the nominee's resume for your convenience. Now, I'm going to introduce the councilors. We have Councillor Ferriera, Councillor Petito Devaney, Councillor
I
Iannella.
just want to say one thing. Huge supporter of yours, Councillor Kennedy. As soon as your name was submitted, he called me, said she's great, and you know what, I've looked at your husband, talked about, and confident.
Thank you, Councillor.
Councillor Duff, Councillor DePalo, and Councillor Jacob. Okay? All right. Now, why don't you introduce who you brought here?
Sure. Brought my husband, Oscar White,
I kind of recognize him a little bit.
my father-in-law, Clement White. I also brought two witnesses, First Justice of the Middlesex, the Suffolk Juvenile Court, Brown Bryant. First Justice of the Middlesex Juvenile Court, that is Tan. One of my witnesses, Kaylee Dow from the Probation Legal Department. Two attorneys from the Probation Legal Department, Kelly Amazi and Jonathan Etes.
We got a lot of lawyers there, huh? Now, we're going to start by calling on your witnesses. Okay, the Honorable Gloria Tan, who just told me it's been 10 years since she's been here. And what I remember about her when she came in was, she still is, she's awfully young.
Yeah, I remember, well, first of all, good afternoon, councilors and Chairman Kennedy. I remember a question being asked in my hearing 10 years ago. Councilor Jubenville said, you know, what do you, he asked one of my witnesses, what do you think about her age? And you said, well, I don't think she's too old. And so I want to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of Fabiola White. In my 10 years on the bench, I've had a lot of time and opportunity to think about what makes a good judge. And I was thinking about, well, what would make an ideal juvenile court judge? And I think Fabiola is that person. And I don't say that lightly. I don't say that in sort of exaggerating at all. I think being a juvenile court judge can be a difficult job. I think it's one of the more challenging jobs in our trial court. And Fabiola is one of the few people, I think, the nominees who actually have represented worked on every single case type in the juvenile court. She has represented young people on the delinquency side. She's had jury trials in front of me. She's also represented families, children, adults on the civil side, the protection, termination of parental rights cases, child requiring assistance cases. She's done it all, and she's done it well. Fabiola is one of those attorneys, when you see come before you, you're happy to see her because you know she's going to do an excellent job. And not only is she aware of, you know, obviously one of our considerations is best interest of the child, but she also is aware of the due process rights that, you know, people face in our court. And so it's not just her depth of experience, but her breadth of experience that is so impressive. And I'm so glad she applied. I've been encouraging her for many years now to apply. I'm so glad that she did. I'm so glad the governor nominated her. She also has a strong command of her legal knowledge, of the law, the procedure. But I think almost as importantly is her temperament and the human element. You know, as all of you know, the case can be very emotionally charged. We have parents who are at risk of losing their parents, their custody of their children, or already have lost custody of their children. We have children who are at risk of being removed from their homes, and sometimes they're at risk of their liberties on the delinquency side. And Fabiola has represented, she's seen that up close and firsthand with her representation of people. And sometimes things can get a little bit emotional in the courtroom. So this job requires resilience and being able to treat everybody that comes before you. Sometimes they're not happy. It's one of the worst times in their lives, being in court.
but she will treat everyone I know with respect, with dignity, and with understanding. And I'm just going to end by saying that in the last couple of weeks since the announcement was made of her nomination, I've been inundated by people reaching out to me, judges, attorneys, judges from different court departments. I run into people, right, and they say, oh, you know, Fabiola's terrific, you know, she's just fantastic. And I had a conversation with my chief probation officer in Middlesex, and I told him about Fabiola's nomination and that I was coming to speak on her behalf. And he launched into this whole thing about how great she is, and that he said she is the go-to person for questions on probation, that she's the person in the probation department who's the juvenile expert, and if she doesn't know the answer right away, she'll research it and get back to him. And then he said, you know, I remember seeing her on the bench in front of the first session in Cambridge Juvenile Court years ago when she was taking cases. And he said, I remember her talking to the client and just, you know, being very understanding. And I think that embodies what makes her such a wonderful candidate, is not only her command of the law, her knowledge of the law, but also that human element that I think is so important and necessary in being a good juvenile court judge. So I strongly encourage you all to vote for her. I think she's fantastic, and I appreciate you all giving me the time today.
Thank you, Judge. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Devaney.
Welcome back.
10 years. 10 years.
You know, I'm just saying that you haven't changed at all. I don't know what you're doing, but I want to know. But so tell me how your relationship with this nominee, have you seen her?
Yes.
And worked with her? Tell us about.
Sure. So she appeared before me in Cambridge Juvenile Court. She had cases before me. She represented both children in the civil side and also the delinquency side, and also parents on care and protection cases. She had a jury trial before me. And so, and I think I might have known her as well when she was a victim witness advocate in the Suffolk County DA's office when I was an attorney in Roxbury. So.
Now remind me, now you've been in the Cambridge court, right?
Yes.
And so when you came before us, you.
No, well, I was appointed for the Middlesex County, and I have been in Middlesex for since. I was appointed,
Right.
yeah.
So when you have observed her, what has it, when you heard to other people that you've seen in her position, how did you stand out?
She, as I said, you know, she is one of those people when you see her on a case, I feel confident that she's getting, that her client is getting zealous representation. But she also does it in a way that's not, you know, sometimes you have attorneys come in and they're just, can sort of cross the line to being kind of inappropriate or disrespectful. And she never does that. And I think that's one of her best qualities, is that everybody who works with her, sometimes, you know, you're not always on the same page, you know, it's an adversarial system. So you have opposing counsel, or you're not always on the same page as the probation officer. But she was able to make those arguments zealously on behalf of her clients, but also maintaining good relationships, and, you know, people respect her, they like her. And that's not always the case sometimes with attorneys who you see in court.
And that's very important, because anyone that goes into court is afraid. It's the unknown, and to have someone smile or be friendly, and, you know, it really puts them at ease. So anyway, but I have to tell you, seeing you and having you witness, I'm so glad to see you.
Thank you. It's nice to see you as well.
It means a lot to this witness for you to be here too.
I'm happy to do so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well said, Councillor Ferriera. You gonna
Yes, I have to run.
have any questions?
I have to leave. I just want to say you're a great candidate. You have my vote next week. I have to run out. I just got a text, but you have my vote. Thank you for applying, and good luck today. These people are rough.
All right. Thanks, Sean.
All right.
He was whispering he wanted to say something, but the hearing aids were off. Anybody else have any questions for the judge?
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. It was good to see you again. Next, we're going to call on the Honorable Helen Brown Bryant, first Justice of the Boston Juvenile Court. And how long has it been, Judge Bryant, since you came through here?
A little over 9.
Over 9. I'm starting to feel old because everybody that's been on the bench a while I voted on, which I'm not used to. Go ahead, Judge.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much. I'm pleased to be here, actually thrilled to be here in support of Fabiola's nomination. And everything that Judge Tan said, I could say just ditto. That is who she is, and you're going to hear that constantly today. But I thought what I would do was just share something that no one else can share. In October of 2014, I had been on the bench exactly 2 months, and I was assigned a case that was, to this date, biggest challenge to my decision-making that I'd ever had. And it was a case of a mother with mental illness, developmental delays, newborn child, and no one, absolutely no one thought that this person could parent. Also in October 2014, Fabiola White was appointed as this mother's attorney, and it was the best decision that had ever been made. This case was one where there was a considerable amount of disrespect toward this mother, toward the attorney who was representing her. The level of just vitriol in the courtroom sometimes was just amazing. And what I can say about Fabiola was she represented her client so zealously and respectfully and never took the bait from the other attorneys. Her temperament was so even. She was scholarly. She had researched things. She had cases. And when I say she zealously advocated, I don't mean she just came in with a bunch of motions that, just throwing them in front of me. They were well thought out. They were things that made me think that maybe this case could go a different way than what we all thought was going to happen. Her advocacy and the way she presented herself raised the level of the other attorneys in the courtroom. They realized that they had to be professional as well. It raised the level of the Department of Children and Families and how they had to treat this client. In the end, the case didn't end the way her client wanted. It didn't end, it ended not well for the mother. But as I'm writing the decision and writing findings, I have to make sure the only thing that gave me solace in this case was that this woman had had the absolute best defense that she ever could have had. And I think as a judge, when you look at someone who's representing someone, you say, gee, I wonder if I would have done all that. That's the gold standard. It's like, this is so amazing. She has done such a remarkable job. And as Judge Tan said, everyone is excited about this nomination. Same thing happened in Boston Juvenile Court. When people heard it was her, they were like, that's amazing, just running upstairs and telling me that. The clerk, everyone feels that way. And I'm thrilled, I'm excited. I just keep saying that I'm so happy to have her as a colleague, and I trust that you will vote for her.
Thank you, Judge. Does anybody have any questions? Councilor Devaney.
I just want to say welcome back.
Thank you.
This is the first time in 9 years that we've seen you.
To speak, yeah.
Yeah, right. Good for you. Must be something in the court book because you both look great. But you'll be working together now. Well, hopefully you'll be same court, right? So what is the major attribute that you believe this nominee brings?
Excellence. Excellence to everything she does. I've never seen her phone it in. I've never seen her do something halfway. Doesn't matter who she's representing, whether it's on the criminal side, the hearing protection side, the CRAs, the cases everybody hates. She is excellent.
Right. And how do you think being a victim witness advocate for that background to start out gives her a better idea of the people that come before her when she's on the bench?
I think because she was in the position of seeing people at their worst as victims, sometimes seeing them at their worst as defendants, seeing them at their worst as parents, all of that, she's been able to see every dimension of a human being. We tend to look at people and see them that is in front of us, that docket number and what it represents. That's not who she is. She sees, in the case I talked about, she saw, most people would have said mentally ill, developmentally delayed kid. She saw a mother and she saw her as a full human being. And I think that being a victim witness advocate probably added that as a dimension as well.
I saw that too. Thank you for talking on that. Thank you for coming. This is one to get a two. This is great.
Thank you, Judge. And our final witness is Kaylee Dow Administrative Coordinator, Legal Unit of the Massachusetts Probation Service. Administrative Coordinator, that means you do all the actual work?
Yes, of course.
Stationary?
No, quite frankly. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kaylee Dow. I'm the Administrative Coordinator for the Legal Unit at the Office of the Commissioner of Probation. I began my career here 4.5 years ago, Fabiola arriving 3 months prior. Being the only non-attorney in the legal unit can be rather intimidating. Fabiola has always made me feel equal, often encouraging me to share my thoughts and to ask questions when I don't understand. She has created an environment where everyone is heard and their opinion respected, while encouraging you to grow and blossom into your best self. I always tell her, almost anything for you. However, my nerves today have me questioning that commitment. She has once again strengthened my resolve to rise to the occasion. Fabiola's passion and drive are contagious. It's something that anyone who speaks to her will recognize almost immediately. Each time I approach her with a juvenile court question from a probation officer, it's as if it was the first. Her face lights up with joy, and you can see the sparkle in her eyes as she spares no detail. Even when she takes a phone call that's a frantic emergency, her natural ability and manner immediately calms the caller down. She is able to walk through the case while providing the resolution that is needed. Fabiola puts her full effort forward, no matter how menial or insurmountable the task may be. Her approach and talents are undeniable, making her a true asset to our team and one that will be sorely missed. There is not a doubt in my mind that these qualities will follow her to the bench. This is not just a job for Fabiola, it is her passion and life's calling. A passion where she has demonstrated her willingness to continue to learn and succeed to the fullest of her abilities. Her life experiences, coupled with impartialness and integrity, will make her an exceptional judge. There is truly no better nomination than Fabiola White. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Councillor Devaney.
I really like your testimony because when do you see her? How often?
All the time.
And you know how I feel about someone in your position, that you see Fabiola more than her husband.
Probably.
And so you see her ups and downs when she's overworked or whatever. Have you ever seen her rattled or, distempered in any way?
I really haven't. It's truly remarkable. We're very overwhelmed with our work. We're constantly so busy, and she really just, no sweat, nothing, she just head down and she gets to it, and we have fun while we do it too.
That's great. Thank you. Your testimony is very helpful,
Thank you.
valuable. Thank you.
Thank you.
She never loses her temper?
No.
Never mind, I should direct that to Judge White. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that closes the portion of the hearing for witnesses in favor of the nominee. Is there anybody here in opposition to the nominee? I think there was a line at security. And that closes that portion. The floor is yours to see your statement.
Thank you, everyone. Okay. Well, good morning. Well, good afternoon. I would like to thank Governor Healy for nominating me to the Juvenile Court. I would also like to thank Lieutenant Governor Driscoll, Paige Scott Reed, Dara Kassenheim for their support. I would also like to thank each member of the Governor's Council for speaking with me and hearing from me today. I would also like to thank my husband, Asha White, and my children for their love and support, my family who are here with me today, and also my family watching in Las Vegas and at home. My entire career has been dedicated to public service. Before I ever spoke in court, I was a silent observer. Right out of college, I was a victim witness advocate at the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office. I was an advocate in the West Roxbury, and Chelsea, and Superior Court. For 4 years, I helped individuals navigate the court system by explaining the process and providing them with services. I stood silently with countless of victims as they obtained restraining orders before the court. On several occasions, I stood with families who lost their fathers, sons, mothers, or daughters to homicide and saw the permanent trauma that violence causes. While working at the District Attorney's Office, I also worked part-time at an organization called The Meeting Place. There, I supervised court-ordered child-parent interactions. I silently observed mothers, fathers, and guardians parent their child in a single hour. Those observations provided great insight into the obstacles families face when they leave the courtroom. As I stood with families, I helped these citizens. I knew I had an interest in the courtroom and the legal process as a whole. I knew I found my calling and realized that this was not just a job, but a career path. The courtroom is where I belonged. Thus, after years of providing services and assisting families, I concluded that if I really wanted to make an impact, becoming an attorney was the most effective way to do that. I went to law school so that I could no longer be a silent observer. It was time for me to speak. After law school, I opened my own practice and began representing clients. I represented mothers and fathers and children in every kind of case in the juvenile court. Care and protection proceedings where the Department of Children and Families were seeking to remove children who were alleged to be abused or neglected. Child requiring assistance proceedings where parents were asking for help with their children who were running away, not following the rules of the home, or not going to school, or had been sexually exploited. And delinquencies where juveniles are charged with criminal offenses. I soon learned the importance of seeing every case type in the juvenile court. A child who originally came in on a CRA could morph into a care and protection case, and that same child could be in court for a delinquency matter soon after. In those 6 years, I represented mothers who had children ripped from their arms at birth. I represented children who were abused or neglected, and juveniles accused of both troubling crimes and childish misbehavior. Equally as important, my representation of families allowed me to see DYS facilities, group homes, and foster homes. It educated me about how the decision-making of a single judge can have a lifelong effect on the juvenile and the family and the communities surrounding them. Lastly, I worked at the probation legal unit, which covers all 5 court departments, including the juvenile court. In this role, I was able to work on policies and procedures and train on topics that affect the juvenile court. This experience has allowed me to see the full picture and learn how those policies and procedures are made and then later executed in court. It is not only my professional experience that I bring to this position, but my lived personal experience as well. I was born in Haiti and came to this country at 8 years old and did not speak English. I had to adapt to a new home, a new school, and a new culture. As you know, I was a child in foster care and navigated difficulties of adjusting to a new environment at a young age. I will never claim to fully understand the specifics of the lives of each young person that comes before me, but I can say that I've walked in their shoes. I felt their same emotions, and I found a way to persevere. While no judge will be flawless, I can assure you that I will never lack empathy. It was this lived experience that propelled me to become involved in social service and then law. It is now what drives me to become an Associate Justice of the Juvenile Court. If confirmed, I will bring all of those experiences with me, not only my professional experience, but my own personal experience with the foster care system. I thank you for listening to me, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Excellent. Chance for the councilors to ask questions. Councilor Duff indicated she had an appointment she had to get to and asked for 5 minutes. If we can take her out of order, if there's no objection. Councilor Duff?
I have a business trip. I've got to get to the airport. But you're a stunning applicant. You know, it's not often I'm without words, but I thank you for applying. Your lived story is important. Reading your application, I just breezed through it again. Some of the cases that you've represented, I mean, you know, heart-wrenching, but you were able to do it and do it so well. And what the judge was talking about, I think you and I had spoken about that very, very case. Can you share with us just very briefly a little bit of your experience in with that community, the community of folks with some cognitive disabilities?
So I represented many families who have that challenge. And in that particular case, it was particularly challenging because she was a parent. And that adds an extra layer. It's already difficult enough to be a parent, but also a parent who has mental health challenges. But I think that, with the court was able to see that with assistance that, just because you're born with mental disabilities, that doesn't mean that you can't parent. And that you can have services and you can have resources. And I think that that's what, I thought of when I was representing that particular client and many other of my cases, whether it's criminal cases, doing the same thing, allowing that the court see the full person. Yes, there might be some cognitive abilities, but that just means we have to adjust to maybe speaking slowly, explaining things, and allowing that person to be heard.
Well, and that's important to me because I grew up with a sister like that. And it's something, I think our courts, judges, chief, I think they're doing a great job of education in this way. But you have a little bit of an edge, I think, going into this because of the work that you've already done. So I really don't have any questions. It's rare for me not to, but I think you're a terrific candidate. Thank you for applying. Thank you for all the time you spent with me. We had a lot of calls. And the only thing I can find wrong with you is that you don't like grits.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Councillor Devaney? No?
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
That was such a nice visit. It really, really, and when I think of someone going to this court, no one is better than you. You've lived it, and like you've walked in the shoes, you said. And I think that's so important because you can identify with these people, and they know it. They'll feel it that you do. I can't imagine being a child with, to be abandoned. You really were like being abandoned because you didn't have your parents, you didn't have, relatives to be there to support you. So from your experience, what recommendations would you make for someone that came from your environment?
To children in foster care, is that, I would say that they are more than maybe the expectations that others expect of them. And that, they can be anything that they want to be. I shared this story because I thought it was important. I never had to share this experience or my story when I was representing them, but I thought today and this platform was the time for them to hear and see that someone who was in foster care could do anything.
Absolutely, and I said that to you when we met. I have seen wonderful foster care, but then I've seen others that didn't work out. And I have a friend that went from one foster care all his life. That's sad, never to have any permanent, home. And so, having said that, I think, you had to be directed to go to juvenile court. There wasn't any other court. There couldn't be. And I would never vote for anyone who hasn't had a concentration go to juvenile court. Years ago, before these people were on, you had someone sitting here, he had 6 cases in juvenile court. No way. This isn't a consolation prize just to get a roll. It's too sensitive. And especially the drugs that are going through, these babies, system and everything. And I know personally, I had a friend, and he has a child that his significant other was drinking. She never stopped for 9 months. And I read about it, and it says that drinking goes directly into the system more than drugs, which really surprised me. So this little boy was born, the syndrome. And my heart breaks. And it just seems wrong. And this might seem crazy to you, but there should be a law. And that mother should be prosecuted for doing that for the child. They're told what it does when you're an alcoholic and you keep drinking, and they keep doing it. And yet they go on with their lives, and the boy is abandoned. Well, not with this case, because he's a wonderful father, and he's doing everything for him. And I don't know what the expectations are, but I pray that, you know, he brings them everywhere, that's his life. But there's so many children out there that well, him you could tell, you know, the parents small head and they're not developed as much their age and all of that. But there are some children that look normal, they look like they're fine. And they're not, they've been abused, and you see them, they had skull fractures and everything else. And of course, this affects them. You had newborn babies coming in with fractures. Tell me, what was the most, how can I put it? You know, you must go home and think about it. You just kind of get some of these things, you know? Just off the track, but I volunteered in the court about 30 years ago, about a year with juveniles on probation. And I learned a lot. It was really good for me because I was a mother of 4 children. I had no idea. And you have a different outlook about what these teenagers are on probation. And I found out the lives they live. And you wonder why they led to when one of the girls, her mother was a prostitute, didn't know who the father was, and she'd be locked in a room while the mother went out. You saw all these cases. So what do you see? Is it improving the what we can give to these people? What kind of programs for these children that are in, you know, and they get into crime? What can we do? What do you see has been done? What other programs would you like to see?
I think a lot have been done in terms of services to children who are having difficulty. And, you know, you never think that the court is a place, but with the CRA system, they've really been able to provide a lot of services, even, you know, informally, where children can get resources. And I think that's been a great thing. But we also know the other end of it is that can also be more services and more resources that could be available for young people.
But I can't get that out of my head. There should be some punishment for someone that is doing that meaningfully to that child and ruining that child's whole life. You know, and drinking. It just seems like they are never accused of anything, and they go on with their lives as much as it is. But it just seems wrong to me. And you can't answer that. I can't either. I don't know what. Yeah. But tell me, with your experience, I already know. How in some of the countries over the experience like you, how do you have to identify with them and show them what they can do? Because you're not a robot. You get to judge. Can you release the thing from their upbringing? How many rides to that? You know? You see a lot of children. Do you see yourself in these children coming before? Adults, young adults?
I do. But I think similar to how I represented my clients, it's not about me and my experience. It's what I bring that, I will always bring that. But it's about the case that appears and their own challenges and whatever they're going through. So I always have my experience, but I'll be more focused on what's going on in that case and that individual child and family that appears before me.
You know, I'm not telling you that I know all the cases that have come there, but what bothers me is after a mother has abused a child, even a day-old child, and broken bones and everything, and then they say, oh, she's rehabilitated, and they give her their child back. I'm concerned about that. What kind of safeguards can we have to know that that child is not going to be abused and that she's rehabilitated?
Yeah, I think, you know, once the care and protection is filed, a lot of resources are made available to the parents and the children. And if that means a removal of the child while that parent is, you know, getting themselves together and, you know, maybe taking services, learning how to better parent, then that's what's available through the courts. While that child is in an environment that is safe, because that's the most important thing, is making sure that the child is safe, and while the parent is working on themselves. And if they are able to be rehabilitated, then perhaps reunification is appropriate. But if it's not, then maybe that's not appropriate in that case.
Well, I'm not a fan Children and Family Department, they know I have publicly said it here. And I'm concerned, there's children out there that die in their care. Some are being stabbed and they come out and they see a 7-year-old boy that's the weight of a year-old baby, and that's okay. And they've closed the book on people like Harmony and people like that have died. We don't even know where they are. And it just seems like it just keeps going on and we say, oh, they're overworked, all this. What do you see as a solution to it, and how has your work been with that department?
I don't know the details of any of those cases enough to give an opinion on them. I just know from the cases that I've had and, you know, my work with the Department of Children and Families, and the dedicated social workers that have been working on those.
I'm sure they're right.
That's what I've seen, and that's kind of been my experience when I've represented families.
Well, you know what I was concerned about during the pandemic? And I was thinking, those children that are home, they're not going to school, so we don't see if they have bruises, they're not talking to the teachers, and the babies can't talk for themselves. And even domestic violence at home during the pandemic. Did you find that it increased, or how did, people weren't going out there to in-house visits? I don't believe in Zoom. I couldn't believe that you can talk to someone that's in violation of a 209A. And you want to see that person, you want to look in his eyes, you want to see the way he holds himself and everything. And on the phone, they were doing that in court. They were doing that in court. So what happened during that time for you, during the pandemic?
So for me, I wasn't representing the families at that time. I was working for the probation department. So I don't know what was going on in terms of how the visits were being conducted. But I know that, you know, the department and the probation officers, you know, lay eyes on children and their attorneys as well to make sure that they're being safe while they're at home.
Tell me, what relationship do you think you as a judge will be with the probation officer?
I think it will be very helpful because now I really, having worked at probation, understand the work that they do much more, and how vital they are to the juvenile court, and that they are a wealth of knowledge with resources and services. They are often the people who know the child best because they've seen them throughout the years. So they're very helpful and I plan on using them.
That's good to hear. Is there still a lack of probation officers in?
I've not experienced that. I don't know from, you know.
Well, I have noticed the last couple of years, but there was a few years ago, I visited a courthouse and it was probation office and all the chairs were empty and it was only the head of the probation there. And I saw that. So I don't know, you know, how that goes, but so you be involved in juveniles. Now, what do you think about the juvenile code? I know it's so, and do you think that it would be all right to increase it by increasing the age of juveniles that come through?
I think I understand the arguments for both sides. And as a judge, I'd be prepared to handle any case that comes before me, whether that's a juvenile under the age of 18 or, you know, a rising adult. I understand both sides. I understand both sides. That is my position, is that I understand both sides of the argument.
I don't see both sides. I feel you're overworked now in the juvenile system and to add more. And as a mother, I can't believe when they say your brain is developed till it's 25. I had 4 children by the time I was 25. And I knew exactly I wanted those children, and so did my husband. So I don't believe that. That's only book. That's from a book. That's not from life experience. And I wish they'd stop. I wish they'd rip that page out of the book because I don't believe it. I really don't believe it. But do you think that?
I actually read the science and I, you know, agree with sort of that the brain is still developing, but I also see that both sides in terms of what kind of cases.
Well, your brain was certainly developed by the people who are 25. But yeah, but I just, and I wanted to ask you,
your different positions, which I think add to, you know, being a judge. But at one point you were a legal assistant, right? And then you were in a law office. But there was a lapse of, I don't know, 9 months or something between the positions. What did you?
So I think what you're referring to is, I went to law school nights.
Yeah.
So I worked full-time at the district attorney's office. And that office, you know, was wonderful because I wasn't able to do an internship. I wasn't able to, you know, go and experience how to be a lawyer. And it allowed me to do that while I was in a DA's office. So when they made me a legal assistant, it was a way for me to go to the appeals unit and work on actual cases.
Okay, it looked like that you weren't working for
I never stopped working.
Okay, I'm just looking at the date from April 2013. It goes back to June 2012. So is that an error?
So the DA's office has multiple units and I was in different units, but I was also at the Boston Municipal Court, the Central. I took cases there. They allowed me to go to Roxbury Court and do motions and argue on cases as a 303 student. So what you're seeing is sort of like the DA's office saying, I know you're working here full time. And that you're in law school, but we support that you are advancing your career and that we want to, you know, allow you to get some of those opportunities that someone who's working full-time wouldn't be able to do if you're in law school.
Now, what
stands? Councillor Devaney, if you could just wrap up another few seconds.
Vote to time me, so we have to stop in mid-sentence. Sorry.
Thank you. Councillor DePalo.
Thank you, Councillor. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I enjoyed our conversation, and I do want to just touch on some of the things we talked about. You know, I know that the legislature is not obligated to follow the science, but the SJC has said that the courts are. And so, as a judge, can I trust that you will follow the science to the extent that it ever becomes an issue before you?
If the court, yes, if
you know, in alignment with the SJC's.
That's what I was going to say, in alignment with the SJC.
I'm very passionate about juvenile court. I've worked with a lot of court-involved youth throughout my career. I think representation really matters, especially when dealing with juveniles. So you're here because of your qualifications and your work experience, but I do want to applaud the governor and her team for diversifying the juvenile bench. I think it's very important. And your story about foster care, I think I would guess kids would respond to that too, although I also respect the, you know, desire to keep things separate and keep that personal, but I think kids would really respond to that. So as we discussed, I was at the Suffolk DA's office the summer before you started there. I did have an internship, and I was in the child abuse division. And one of the things I observed was that a lot of the cases we were working on, the victims of the child abuse, who in many cases had since aged, were often court involved, that the two seemed to coincide with each other. And in your opening statement, you mentioned how in one of the anecdotes you were sharing, the trauma of violence follows someone. And I'm wondering, could you explain what you mean by that, how trauma follows someone and how it might impact why they're in the court?
Sure. I think it's just when something traumatic happens to you, it sort of, you know, redirects your thinking and how you approach the world. And so it may be that you end up, you know, involved in the court system or feel like you have a lack of resources. But it is definitely something that, you know, impacts the way that you think or see the world and approach adults and authority figures and school and structure, because something has happened to you that, you know, has shifted your focus, you know, in development.
In my experience, a lot of children who've been the victims of abuse can display defiance, for example, right? And so being in the courtroom, of course, is a very stressful experience. You and I discussed Ulani, and you went into greater detail on some of that. You know, would you ever hold a child in contempt? And then follow-up question. I think every person in our system is very well intentioned, especially in the juvenile system. I've seen instances where I feel that children are being scolded from the bench, and I think it's well intended. I'm not sure if it's a pragmatic approach to get the child where we want them to be. I'm curious what you think about that.
Well, my two witnesses are who I plan to model my tenure on the bench, because they're the two judges that I've been before the most. And if they can have, the right temperament to deal with the difficult cases, then I think I could do that, because I've seen them do it. And that's what I would be thinking about. I don't see myself holding a child in contempt. I've represented children from, birth to adolescence to teenagers. I understand that sometimes they don't even want to talk to me and I'm their lawyer. And, maybe we talk another day, or maybe we don't talk about the case that much. Maybe we talk about something else. So I have tools that I think that it would be helpful if a child is, being disruptive or having any issues, that maybe I call the case later, or, take a break. But I plan on modeling what I've seen from the two witnesses, Judge Brown Bryant and Judge Tan, and being that, and hope that I could be that.
Our conversation, your presentation today, the conversations I've had with other folks leading into today, I'm very impressed and confident in your temperament. I think you'll be great in that role. I appreciate your life experience. You've demonstrated, I don't need to ask, sensitivity to accommodating folks with special needs or with disabilities. You've talked about brain development, and you've shared empathy for the challenges that children navigating the court system face. So I'm looking forward to supporting you, and I'm glad you applied, and I'm glad you're here.
So Jacob.
Thanks. It's great to see you. We had a really great conversation. I appreciate that you came out to North Adams to sit down with me and chat. We explored many, many different topics. I want to follow up on one area that we discussed. Although I will echo what fellow counselors have said, just in terms of your experience is phenomenal. The life experience you bring really just contextualizes your values and approach and compassion and approaching cases that come through juvenile court. We talked about your recent attendance at the training on managing an anti-racist courtroom, layered with the work of Chief Justice Gans on attorney wellness, I think was how you described it, and the consistent experiences of lawyers of color kind of having experienced disrespect or othering in the courts, and sort of your personal experience with that, but just the broader understanding of the bias. So we talk a lot about the bias on the sort of incarcerated population and the parole board, but this is a different way that bias shows up in the courts that we don't talk about that often, but I think is so important as well. I think both are important. I don't want to diminish how important it is for those appearing before the bench, defendants and others, to have a respectful courtroom and anti-racist courtroom, but thinking about it from the standpoint of lawyers who are facing racial bias regularly is another layer that I think it's important for us to, I think, focus on and understand how to impact change around that issue. Having said that, I guess my question for you, we talked about it, so just to give you another opportunity to talk about it, but how you see yourself managing your courtroom, both in terms of attorney wellness, but in terms of mitigating the bias laden in how juveniles who are, whether they're delinquent, whether they're care protection, regardless of why they're in court, their experience being as unbiased and as fair as possible
Yeah, well, being in the court and taking cases, you have a lot of opportunities to see how judges do it. So I'm not going to be doing anything that judges aren't already doing. I have the modeled experience. And as an attorney of color, appearing both before Judge Tan and Judge Brown Bryant, I felt like when I spoke and I was talking about my clients, I was seen and I was heard. And so I want to project that to attorneys who are appearing before me. And also for families that are appearing before me, because I stood where they stood. I was standing right there representing a client, and, you know, with challenges or whatever was going on with that client. So I think what's important in the juvenile court is that every attorney is heard, because there's a lot of them. Right? It's not just a prosecutor and a defense attorney, but in care and protection, every child or parent or father has an attorney. So making sure that they have an opportunity to speak on behalf of their client, be heard, and know that the court is listening and, you know, is involved in what's going on. And again, just modeling what I've exhibited from as someone who was representing an attorney. So I'm not doing anything that's new. I'll just keep doing what I've seen before that's been successful and works.
I have full confidence in your ability to step into those shoes, and having now heard from two of the women that you hold up as role models in that role, I appreciate it even more. I am very happy that you've been nominated for this role. I think you'll be a fine addition to the court. So I have no further questions today.
Thank you. How's your math? Do you know how to count? Count how many votes you had there? Looks like you're in pretty good shape. I gotta tell you, obviously, you know, I already know you, and I know what a terrific candidate you are. I have one comment. Your husband looks more nervous today than he did at his old hearing. I don't know what that's about. We're gonna adjourn. I'm gonna vote for you. Okay. Councilor Devaney, yes.
I'd like to ask your permission if we could have Attorney White introduce the people who came to support her today.
I believe she already did that.
I did.
She did it.
Fast.
Did, yeah.
All right, so we'll adjourn.